Cool. All right. I think we're live. Welcome, Jason. Nice to have
Thanks,
you,
Mike.
bud.
Appreciate it, Fish.
So first thing, I'm going to make a fool of myself right off the bat. I mean, I always get confused as like Philly, Jersey, like where exactly are you?
So I say Philadelphia all the time too, just because it's the spot on the map everybody can seem to relate to. I actually live in the bottom half of New Jersey, so about 15 minutes outside of Philadelphia in the quiet part of New Jersey. So I'm about an hour and a half from New York, so it's not so busy where I'm at here.
Nice, man. So
Yeah.
so it's clean, it's quiet, family subdivisions.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot quieter down here than it is up there, and so if any of my New Jersey folks in the group here are out there, like I think everyone knows that New Jersey's broken into like the top half and the bottom half, and so I'm definitely in the bottom half.
Nice. So you and I, we kind of got to know each other through social media and through other loan officer friends that we have. And I really appreciate your time for the MLO network today. I know you've given back to some other Facebook groups and some other calls that I've done. And I really appreciate you telling your story because a lot of what you've gone through the last few years is what folks in this group and myself and others we aspire to get to, and it's kind of this recipe where you were at a level that was okay, it was decent, and somehow you broke through to a level where you're basically top 50 in the country, and everyone's like, oh, this is great, how did you do it? So I guess maybe let's start with that. I mean, you weren't a guy that just like built this up overnight. I mean, I remember you told the story to me a while ago how you had some frustration and you kind of hit a wall and plateaued. Let's talk about that and kind of where you are right now, and then I have some questions about how you got there. So
Great. Yeah, so I got into the business in 2002, and at the time it was really an accident. So I didn't set out to become a loan officer or work in the mortgage space at all. So it was just really an accident, and from 2002 through it was probably 2008. So for 6 years, I bounced around somewhere in that like maybe like 10 million, and in a very good year, $20 million. But for a long time, I kind of sat in that space. And it wasn't until about 2000, it was probably the turning point was probably around 2008 when I decided that I actually was going to make a career out of this. Um, Between 2002 and 2008, I can think of two times where I was going to exit the business just because I wanted to see what I could do in a different capacity. And so two times I almost left and didn't. And I'm thankful that I stayed. And in 2008, I decided that I was going to make this my lifelong career. And when I committed to that, that's really when things started to change for me. So I think in around '08 or '09, I went from about 20 million to 50 million, and from 50 to almost 90, and then from 90 to 140. And those years of growth were a lot of like long hours, a lot of time spent away from my friends and family. Kind of a different way than I would build it today. So I probably wouldn't go back and do it the same way if I could again. Most of those days were like I'd start the day around 6 a.m. I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have a team. I managed my entire pipeline by myself with a shared loan processor. And so from about 6 a.m. to 8:30, I spent most of my day behind like three computer screens managing my business from email and phone. Never really anything face to face. There really wasn't time to be face to face, which to me, that was the fun part, and that was what I was missing out on. And over the last like 4.5 years, I've basically redone my entire business plan and have taken it away from being the guy who sits behind the computer for 14 hours a day to a guy that has a team that supports him and goes out and produces his own business while being with the people who provide me with that business.
I dig it, man.
Yeah.
Well, this is, you and I just talked about this before we started the call, and to me, the coolest part, and one of the reasons I keep hitting you up to do calls like this, is exactly this. How much do you currently spend on marketing? I mean, how much do you spend with agents and ads and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I have a pretty small marketing budget. It's $0 right now. So I don't spend money on partnership branding. We don't have I don't have a desk in some office. I don't have a big relationship with one of these major franchise type organizations. So most of my business, if not all of it, comes from referral. None of which comes from the bank that I work with, but everything that I get that comes from referral has been on a relationship that I've built based on serving others as opposed to selling them my product and service, which has allowed me to get away from those marketing agreements or desk rentals. That's just, I was a part of those at one point, maybe 7-ish years ago, and then we got away from them just because it was not, for me, it wasn't unhealthy. It was unhealthy. It wasn't what was aligning for me at the time. And I felt like the entire relationship was based off of that check every month. So yeah, we just don't do it anymore, and our business has grown because of it.
I like it. So, that's probably a shock to a lot of the folks in here. And, some folks hear, oh, I built my business long hours over many years. I mean, that's not always easy as well. I mean, certainly you put your time in and you paid your dues. One thing that I notice every time I talk to you, and every time I talk to a lot of the guys that produce 50 to 100 million and beyond, is that, they definitely did put time in learning the products and learning how to crush a loan file. And, I've noticed a lot of the folks in this call, Jim Prince, Greg Tanner, others, I mean, you take great pride in knowing your products. And, that when you lead your team, that's your position, is you know how to do every single job on your team. You don't do every single job, but you've got everything broken down. And I guess we can circle back more to the marketing and selling, because I know you got some great tips for guys here, but let's talk about that part that a lot of the LOs in this group really need help with. And it's how do you take all that stuff coming at you where you're working all day, every day, and build that system and that team and that workflow that allows you to free up your time to spend more time building these relationships.
Sure. Yeah, and so on the product piece, there isn't anything sexy about knowing loan products, but you have to. And so in order for me to grow my business, I had to know I wanted to be the first person that knew about any sort of update or change. So I wanted to be a professional in my product set. Now I'm not the best in every single product, so I do have a lane that I try to do most of my business in. But when it comes to any sort of whether it's conventional or VA or FHA, I have most of those things down. And if I don't, I know where to get the answer really quickly. So, but product knowledge is really important. I mean, you can't enter a conversation and then get back to somebody in an hour and yeah, kind of fall on your face. So I'd say without product knowledge, you really can't have a discussion with an underwriter that could leave you in a position where you're winning. So I would like to be an equal with an underwriter. So, and I honestly feel like I have a little bit more knowledge than they do, just because the product knowledge for me is how we get paid. So if I can poke holes in something and turn it into a loan where somebody else at in a call center might drop it, for me that's a win. So yeah, product knowledge is a big thing.
Now you actually built, like you said, you built a lot of your referral base with specialty products or with a specialty value proposition. I know you and I talked about this once before last year. Talk about some of the specialty things you did. I mean, I know you had a first-time buyer period in your career and a period with financial advisors and attorneys and doctors and all that kind of stuff. So how did this this idea of niching out what you were doing and focusing on different buyers and different products? Well, what was the progression on that, and how did that kind of put you in a position to build stronger relationships?
So the first time I decided to do that, it was probably around 2007, and I decided I was going to go after first-time home buyers, merely because there were more of those out there than anyone else. I felt like that market wasn't being targeted as hard as others were, and so I felt like I had a better opportunity to bring in more business there. So I positioned myself as a first-time home buyer specialist in the city of Philadelphia, and that year I think I did over 150 loans, and almost I think 100 of them, or about 100 of them, were first-time home buyers. So that was really great for a period of time. And then in 2009, I shifted that into more of a jumbo like most of what I was looking for was in the jumbo space, only because at that time, for many years, the jumbo rate was very high in comparison to the conforming loan rates, and they started to level out in 2009. And the gap became really as close as it could have ever been, and I used that to transition into the jumbo space. And I was looking for opportunities all over the jumbo, like any area that I could get a jumbo loan in. That became my target, and it worked. And that was a big help in my shift from doing, that year I went from like 40 some million into the 80s. There was a good mix of conforming and jumbo in there. And then more recently, so I've held on to the jumbo piece, although my average loan size has really come down a lot in the last few years. So I'm still somewhere in the 400s, maybe 500, somewhere in there. But I've shifted that now to work a lot with medical professionals. So I felt like that market was underserviced and underutilized, and I've really made a name for myself in the last 5 or 6 years within like the medical community. So I've always tried to look for an alley or a way that other lenders weren't looking. So, and that's really helped me grow. So first-time home buyers to jumbos to physicians now, and I don't know where that next that next lane is, but I'm always looking for an opportunity that not everyone else is looking at.
I dig it. So step one, you kind of found the product, and then I know we talked again on other calls, and you and I chatted here and there about some of the things that you did that helped you build these relationships, and some of it was the giver's gain mentality. I mean, you weren't always just looking out for yourself. You were looking out for different partners of yours, and in turn, building great relationships with those partners, folks that had influence, CPAs, financial planners, attorneys, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
What methods did you use that really made a big difference, as far as building quality relationships?
Yeah, so at first, so early in my career, the first half of it was always about how I could get the next loan or how I could always close the next transaction. And in recent years, it's been like more, how can I serve the client that I'm intending to serve? How can I serve my referral partner? Like, what can I actually do for them to help them with their business before they help me with mine? So that's been a totally different shift for me, and it's actually, I think that's part, if not almost all, of what's driven my growth over the last year. Like last year was probably a slower year for most loan officers, and for me it was my best. So, but prior to that, I would look for targets. So, like one of the things you and I have even talked about was I would ask every borrower who their financial advisor and accountant was, and that was part of the application process. So I would collect that information, and then during the loan process, I would ask them about, very early in the process, I would ask them about their accountant and financial advisor, and I'd be like, hey, Fish, so your accountant, Dan Smith here, how great of a job does he do for you? Do you like Dan? Would you recommend him to anyone? And you might say, yeah, he's amazing, he's great. And I'd say, well, a lot of my clients can't say that about their accountant, and I'd love to be able to refer him to some of the people that aren't happy with the ones that they have. Do you think you can make an introduction? And so that intro would turn into a great conversation, like a nice warm intro to me and this accountant, and then I'd turn that into referring them one or two people over the course of the next few months. And then this guy's all excited that he's got a loan officer referring him business, and he's referring stuff back to me. So now I have a handful of accountants. Same thing with financial advisors. I've done that same thing just through asking clients if they're happy with their service. And it's great, especially when someone says, no, I'm the accountant. I'm the guy who does the taxes. That's my favorite. I love being able to connect them with someone who can actually save them money. And obviously an accountant has a fee, but they're covering that in their savings by a whole lot more, especially for someone who's not a tax professional. So I love asking those questions and really like digging deep. It serves both the tax professional, financial advisor, and then also the client. So yeah, for me, like uncovering those sort of things can really lead to more business.
Dig it, man. So, part of why I wanted you to come on is that you decided you're going to try to share some of what you're doing with the larger community and, plug in to some of the folks that have helped you get to where you're going. And you got to a point where, like you said, you were working all day, every day, and you were okay with it. That was part of who you were, but you knew it wasn't what you wanted for the rest of your life. And you realized you had to build teams and systems and you
Yeah.
decided to just look all over America and help, find people to help you do that. So I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's I guess how did you get to that point, and then how did your journey to find people, how did that go? And then once you decided to commit, I mean, you've paid a lot of money in training and coaching, and now here you are. It's
Sure.
obviously been worth it.
Yeah, so I started, I plateaued somewhere in maybe 2012, and I felt like I was stuck. I couldn't really get past like 200, 225 transactions a year, and I felt like the only way to get to the next level was to enroll some support. And so that was around that time, I guess it was in 2014, I left the company I was with and came to another that was going to allow me to bring support staff in for the first time. So for the first 12 years of my career, I didn't even have an assistant. So in 2014, I
It's
hired my
crazy.
first. Yeah, I mean, looking back, it was great because I had to do all the heavy lifting, and I knew exactly what I needed out of my support staff. Um, but in 2014, I hired my first guy, and I thought I had, like this was great, somebody to help get disclosures out, collect documents, make calls to borrowers in the process, and I could spend more time growing, playing offense. And it was only 6 months before I had to hire my second one. Um, and I kept two for about a year and a half. And then through the coaching I was receiving, I realized that the only way for me to level up was to backfill my team to support future volume, as opposed to this thought process of I'll go out there and bring in all the business and then hire people behind me to figure it out. Um, the way I see it, the way I experience growth is that you have to grow into your business. So if you want to get to the next level, you're going to have to do something different to get there, and it won't happen after you get there. So if I wanted to get to a place where I'll close 400 or 500 loans, it means I have to hire another one or two people in the back end. So right now I have four people. I hired my fourth person 2 weeks ago. When I say four people, all support, no origination, no junior loan officer, all support. But I hired my fourth person 2 weeks ago so that I can spend time on everything but staying in the back end of the loan process. I want all of my conversations now to be about deal structure. How can I help a real estate agent grow their business? How can I have a client understand the loan process really deeply? But then when we get into the process and we're collecting pay stubs and bank statements, they really don't need my help there. So now that's, for me, leveling up is not only growing my business, but also growing a team that is going to be able to do great things at some point in their career too. So, my team leader, Mark, he's this is a guy who was a loan processor at a bank 6 years ago, and now he runs my entire pipeline and manages the other three people on the team. So we've grown organically, and yeah, I can't even begin to describe how cool it is to watch him flourish and where he's going to be in 5 years. I'll still be out there originating, but this guy might turn into the next $100 million producer, either on my team or running his own, because he's been around this business long enough to see some pretty cool things happen.
I like it, man. And I like how that concept of building your team in advance. I mean, we see that. We see people posting that here. We hear that all the time. Like, well, once you get to 5 units, we'll hire somebody. And once you get to 10, we'll hire another. Once you get to 15, we'll hire another. And you're like, well, look, dude, I averaged 5, 6 units for a while, but then I got in this rut, and they were self-sourced and they were tougher deals. So
Yeah.
I couldn't grow because I stopped making relationships and marketing and selling while I was working on closing those deals. And
Yeah, one
that's
of the
kind of
most
true.
frustrating things
Yep.
like I saw happen was like here you have your January is here and then your February is down here and then your March is up here and then your April is down here and it was like I can originate and then I have to spend time closing the loans and then I get to originate again and then I got to spend time closing them. And that's what I did for the first like 6 or 7 years of this business, and I had to figure out a different way. So yeah,
Well,
now, yeah,
one thing that you told me, before, and it was a different call, but it's very true, and it's where I see a lot of LOs make the mistake. When you hired your people and you built your team, you still came in early and you still worked really hard until you guys had met some of those goals. You didn't just relax because you had staff.
hmm
You relaxed once you got to the point where you knew your staff knew what they were doing, and you had the volume to keep them working hard. it's something I've heard on a lot of calls. Actually, our friend Dustin Brumley in Washington, I believe he coined the phrase "dirty middle," or maybe he borrowed it from somebody. But you get in that point where you've hired people, and you're responsible for this whole office, and you got to work through the how everyone is gelling and whose job duties are what, and you got to make sure you're bringing in the extra deals. You're doing your job as the team leader. So that's I'm always impressed when people are able to pull that off. It's there, it's in your head, but then when you get that minute to relax and you have people behind you, the natural tendency is, okay, well, I've been working really hard for a long time, I can finally relax. Versus, no, you can't relax yet. You got to get that team clicking and humming and operating. And I know I've made that mistake myself, and I've seen a lot of loan officers make that mistake nationwide, where then they start to grow their team and they think they can come in a little later and take their eye off the ball a little bit and, not necessarily look at their pipeline at all, which I'm pretty sure you don't do any of that stuff until you know that it's already taken care of because your name's still on the, still on the loan app. So.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so there's sales and then there's leadership, and sales and leadership aren't like to me, I don't see them as ever coming together. They're two independent things. And so if you're out there selling and driving a new business and you can move a loan through the process, if you're not being a leader for your team, like there can be a real disconnect there. And if your team culture, the way your team works together and with you isn't humming, then your entire business can fall through. It doesn't really matter how many loans you're bringing through if all of them are unhappy. So if all of those people make it into the process and things aren't clicking, then you have problems. So, and leadership to me is this a concept. Like if you asked me 2 years ago, hey Jason, how do you feel like you are as a leader? I'd say, what do you mean? I bring in loans and my team is supposed to close them. And when that changed, my team like almost overnight, my team changed. So, yeah, like if I was going to hire somebody today, their resume isn't as important as their fit on the team. As like you can get a lot out of their attitude and find out if they're a fit for your culture, and you can create anybody into a mortgage professional. At least that's the way I see it. And the guy that I just brought on, 22 years old, just graduated from college in June of last year, worked at a hotel in hospitality management for 6 months and decides he wants to work in banking, and he's here because he's a great fit for the culture. And he's already fit. I mean, he's like a little part of the family now.
I like it, man. I like it. But let's talk about, what you're doing next. I mean, you decided that you got a lot of help from your coach, and you guys are going to try to kind of expand what you're doing to maybe include more folks across the country. And, there's a lot of folks that plateaued in that 10, 15, 20 million, wherever they're at, but they kind of plateaued with hours and volume, and they need more than just some marketing ideas. They need help understanding how to really build a branch of business in a legacy kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I hired a coach 2 years ago, and for me, I thought that I had all the answers. And so I was looking for someone who could help me grow, whether it was with technology or a new platform to help me grow my business. And what I found out was, like through coaching, is that if as I would become a better leader, I would start to drive my referral partners in a way that allowed them to refer me more business. I helped them grow their businesses. I helped my team become better leaders for our customers. So we've taken this concept of leadership to a level where now we're out. My coach and I are out there sharing it with others. And I don't know that, like, I'm not going to be a coach. Like, it's not my desire to coach. I've said this on a previous call. Like, I'm a player in the mortgage space, and I'll continue to be a player, but I'm going to be a player that helps other players. And so we're planning to do an event in May, and we're going to help out. At this point, I don't know how many loan officers we'll have. We've had a lot of activity, but it'll be close to 100. And it might be the only time I do it, just from a sense of, like, I really want to dedicate my time to grow my business. Like, I owe it to my team as well to help them grow the business. 200 million is definitely in our sights, and I really, Mike, I wanted to hit that number this year, and me missing was like, I know someone just shared the Scotsman guy with you, and that was cool to see that. I haven't actually put my eyes on the actual document yet. Like, to me, it was 200 million was a number I really thought I had this year, and so that's what's going to happen this year. but I am interested in sharing with others. Like I see people stuck in many different ways, and it's different. Some people want to free up their time to get back to the things they want to do. Like if I could sell 18 hours a day and never get tired, like sell meaning serve. Like I would love having conversations with borrowers and referral partners all day. Like it would never bother me. But I don't want to like get in the weeds and chase people down for pay stubs and bank statements. Just 5 hours of that and I'm burnt. So, and some people want to grow their business and make more money. That's not apparent for everybody. So I think I can get in there and help people do the things that they want to do in a different way, without having to leverage things like technology and tactics. Those are important, but that's not what grows businesses.
I like it. And that's, we see a lot of LOs that struggle to figure out what their value proposition is for their partners. And, I think you and I talked about this before the call. Instead of just trying to impose your will on everybody you run across, you got one mouth and two ears. You ask some questions and you listen to where they need help, and you just figure out how what can help them. Like you and I say, we spend a lot of time trying to run our business and be leaders and be better at selling and marketing. And there's a lot of folks around us that can use our skills. But sometimes we're so busy talking that we don't even understand what they need from us. And, once we have a better understanding of how we can truly help them, it allows us to build these deeper relationships. So
Yeah, I'll tell you. So for years I would show up to a meeting I might have scheduled or to an event hoping to meet with somebody, and I'd show up there with all of the answers.
mm-hmm.
And until I started showing up empty and start listening, so like two ears, one mouth, right? So like when you start listening to people, it might not be about mortgages. Like they might need someone to talk to them about something totally different. You might be an expert in something outside of the mortgage industry. You might have a previous passion that all of a sudden you share with this person, or they might be having a difficult time with someone in their office. And because I'm a professional in leadership now, I might help them through that. And then all of a sudden, not only do they then begin to like me, they start to trust me. And now business is just this thing that happens because they like you and trust you. So I just never show up with all the answers now. I just go into conversations thinking, what can I uncover? How can I help someone? And ultimately, I end up getting business that way. It's like you become this black hole and you just start attracting things to you, as opposed to going out there and, like you said, imposing yourself on everyone. Sometimes that has to happen, but most often that's not the way I get my business.
I like it, man. I like it. So tips and tricks for the LO that wants to break out of the grind. Drop one or two tips and tricks, and then talk a little bit about event, and then we'll let everybody get back to their day.
Cool. We're all stuck to our phones and email. So like my biggest tip, this is something I learned like 9 months ago. So I used to be in front of my email at all times. Like there wasn't an email that didn't get a response in a handful of minutes. Now I used to shut my email down for 15 minutes of every hour, and for that 15 minutes I would play offense. I'd schedule appointments and do things that I knew were going to help me grow my business, maybe even recreate a process that I had. And then it got to 20 minutes and then 30 minutes. So now I'm not spending as much time on my email, because those things you do get caught up, right? So we've gone to golf outings and to events where you've been gone all day, and then you come back and you're like, how am I going to catch up to all those emails? And an hour later, you've done it. You've completed an entire day's email in one day. So I'd encourage people to shut their emails off for a short period of time. Like it's going to be something you'll have to get used to. And then there might even come a time where you can shut your phone off too, and really focus on the things that are important to you. And so like a little bit of quiet time every hour for me helped me grow my business. I mean, quiet time helped me change my entire loan process, which now we have a process, we call it the road to closing, and it is like so buttoned up that a client never has an opportunity to even ask a question. So they're getting an answer before they even thought of the question. Very close to when they're about to ask it, and they don't even know they're about to until they get the answer. So like I'd say spend a little bit more quiet time to figure out what it is that, like, where can you improve your business? Where can you improve your offense? How can you button up your defense? But if you're in front of your keyboard and you're answering the phone all day long, you're never going to make time for that. And that's where plateau comes from.
Yeah, a lot of us, we think just being busy all day, every day is helping us, grow and build our business. And
Right.
that's just maintaining. That's not helping us grow.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen if you do it once a week. Like if you're not doing it every day, it's no different than, exercise, right? So if you're training for a marathon and you run once a week, like you're not going to run a marathon. So, and if this is a lifelong journey, as it is for me in the mortgage business, like if I'm not spending time in it every day trying to find little ways to improve, and that was something that really helped me out. So spending a little less time in front of email.
So you got an event coming up in May. I'll put the links in the comments here. Just kind of
Cool.
tell people about it. I mean, I don't, I know we didn't talk about your coach much and what you guys are going to do at the event, but it sounds to me like it's something a little different than what's out there. I don't really see any other events like it.
Yeah, so my coach is a really extraordinary person, and not a whole lot of people have heard about him, but he's coached some of the top, definitely a whole lot in the top 100 on the Scotsman's Guide, and he's helped me a whole lot in my business. And so him and I have decided to do a 2-day event in Philadelphia. It's May 17th and 18th. There'll be about 100 loan officers. It's kind of an invite only, so we're not just letting anyone register for the event, so we really want to make sure it's the right people. And this 2-day experience, and I'll call it an experience because it's not just two of us talking at you. It'll be very interactive, but it will change the way people do their mortgage business from now on. Not even just for a short period of time, but as long as they do it. So his work around how to become a better leader in your business and how to produce more business has made my life a whole lot easier, and I'm just really excited to share it with people.
Cool, man. Really dig it. So is it okay if I put a link? I know you said it's private invite, or should I tell people to hit you up or
Put the link out there. I mean, they'll be able to reach out to me first, and we'll talk a little bit about what their goals are. And like again, I experience loan officers as like some that really want to grow their business, some that want to get back to where they started, some that want more time. But yeah, like I know the people that you associate yourself with, Mike, and so a lot of them are after it and trying to level up. And those are really the people. Like we're looking for the people that want to level up in many different ways.
I like it, man. I dig it. Well, I definitely appreciate your time. I know,
Thanks, man.
You're like you said, you're a busy guy, sometimes 12, 14 hours a day, but you're a master of your schedule too. And, I appreciate you sharing time with the folks here. I appreciate everything you're trying to do to make the industry better. So here's to hitting that 200 million mark. Let's check in maybe another 3 or 4 months to see how you're doing.
All right.
Didn't you say we didn't say that on this call? I mean, we didn't talk much about your production, but you're up. This is already looking like it's going to be your best year ever. Even though everyone else is saying, "Oh my God, doom and gloom."
We're on track right now. Interest rates aren't so like I used to track and follow interest rates. Like I'd have a third screen up, I'd have the market up all day, I'd have the TV on with whatever CNBC and all sorts of data coming at me at all points. Like I have nothing on now. I don't really care what interest rates do. It's not what drives my business. And when I really figured that out, it got me away from all of those distractions. So interest rates don't change how much business you do. It might change the type of business you do or where you have to go to get it, but it doesn't change how much business is out there. There's a lot of business out there.
Yep.
And so if you're focused on interest rates or you're focused on the market or you're focused on who the president is or the next president is or isn't going to be, like those aren't things that are important to growing your business. So if you really like eliminate a whole lot of those distractions and focus on what's important, like it's all out there, it just moves. And
we know people that had some of their best months ever in the last 2 months. I remember talking to guys back in 2008 that had their best months ever right after everything blew up.
Yeah.
It just, again, it's where you're going for your business, the type of business that you're going after, and how strong your hustle is. So
yeah,
dig it, dude.
Good stuff, man.
Well, all right, we'll call it a day, and if anybody wants to hear about what he's doing in Philly, I'll put the link in here. Maybe if you could just message me that link, I'll make sure I got the right one.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Definitely appreciate your time, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, Fish.
You got it, bud.
See you, man.